Yeah, I mean that's one way of looking at it. I mean the general way in which it's described in the kind of tradition I follow is to say that in a sort of bundle theory, if you like, is that it's a form of psychological connectedness and continuity. So there is a continuity and connection between different experiences we have. Memory is the most obvious one. But there are also other connections which are to do with a certain stability of personality, trait of plans and intentions, all this kind of thing. You know, the fact that you're doing this here today, you were making arrangements for this many weeks ago, maybe even a year or so ago. You know, there are these connections over time with what's going on in our minds. So it's the ordered collections and continuities which bring about that sense of self. And of course, and that is real. But again, it's something which doesn't have a kind of a permanent, unchanging essence at the heart of it. All of this is in flux. So to put it in perhaps the most stark terms, this is why I think that eternal life doesn't make sense. Because if you could live forever, well, if you think about the ways in which we are linked to our past selves, if they're all just to do with memory, disposition and so forth, over time they become weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And there would become a point in the future, I don't know what age it would be, where you look back and say, in effect, that person is so disconnected from me, it's not me anymore. That can happen in an individual life. And I think it does happen, actually, to a large degree, between our childhood selves and our adult selves, you know. Talking about this in front of school children is very interesting because they get it very straightforwardly if they're, say, 16, 17, 18. I say, imagine yourself aged 11, 12, you know. You're probably completely embarrassed at the thought. You know, the idea that you were that person, you've changed such a lot in the last few years. In what way does it even make sense to think of yourself being the same person? And I think they sort of get that. And then you say, well, imagine being 70 years old. They can't. You know, they have no imagination of that. And that's because, in a way, they're kind of right. You know, people say teenagers are stupid or foolish because they can't imagine being 60. But in a way, they're right, because the 60-year-old person isn't who they are. It will have been someone who has gone through such a process of change. It's like a different person who is very importantly connected to them. So I think the relationship between our younger and our older selves is something between the relationship between ourselves on Tuesday and Wednesday and the relationship between like a parent and its offspring. It's much closer than parent and offspring, but it's not as close as myself from one day to the very next day.